I'm outside on my patio enjoying an unusually cool spring day in South Texas. I'm thinking about another week of lockdown because of COVID-19. Words like pandemic, unprecedented, and self-quarantine are now at the forefront of our vocabulary. And so are terms like social distancing, the new normal, and flattening the curve. Dining out is now drive-through or carry-out only. Streets are empty in New York City and LA. Shelves are empty in grocery stores. And acquiring these rare items like toilet paper, it's like an episode of The Amazing Race. I mean, toilet paper, really? These are strange days indeed. It reminds me of REM's classic song, "It's the End of the World as We Know It." But our school district, man, I'm inspired by our school. They didn't miss a beat and quickly shifted to online classes the very first week. Our daughter doesn't like this, but she'll likely finish 9th grade online. And more seriously, for many families who depend on school lunches to feed their children during the day, well, our schools stepped up and have already provided nearly 100,000 meals. Now, social distancing makes sense because this isn't our first rodeo with a global pandemic. Health experts looked at the past pandemics and found that the spread of the disease followed public gatherings, such as conferences and festivals. And the highest attack rates were seen in school children due to their close contact in a crowded setting. So, avoiding crowds of people is critical to slowing the spread of COVID-19. It's science and it's common sense. Now, as a family, we've enjoyed the intimacy of things like worshiping online together. We jokingly say that our daughter still sits in what we call the student section on the other end of the sectional sofa. We give online. We meet with our small group via Zoom meetings. And today, we shared communion in our home as our pastor led us online. Now, some people think it isn't church unless it happens in a particular building. While there is great value in people gathering for community and worship, and I'm looking forward to getting back to the old normal, but the church is not a building. We are the church. And I think a lot of good will come out of connections like this. And this brings up what I think is a very important question. What role does faith play in all of this? Well, faith should always play the role it's designed to play, not as a supporting actor, but as the primary force that drives us, the center that everything else radiates from, like spokes on a wheel. You see, faith is the hub, not one of the spokes. It's the hierarchy for success and satisfaction described by Jesus in Matthew 6:33. He said, "Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." You see, this is God's operating system. Start here. Everything is designed to flow from here. It's the answer to the question, which commandment is the most important? To which Jesus replied, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength." He went on to say the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these. You see, in all things, the primary objective of our faith is to love God and love people. So, in times like this, we have the opportunity to recalibrate our faith and deepen our relationship with God. We're reminded of how temporary this world is, how fragile life is. When life is uncertain and things are out of our control, our faith is exposed with all of its strengths and all of its weaknesses. We're reminded of what matters most, and we have the opportunity to act activate our faith in uncharted territory, not just for self-preservation, but to be a life-giving spirit to others. Our love for God compels us to love others more. Now, let's talk about fear. Fear itself is not a sin. It's human. Jesus was fully God, but he was also human. So he experienced things like hunger. He got thirsty. He cried. He was susceptible to colds and viruses like us. Prior to his arrest and crucifixion, he asked God to take this cup from me. He was talking about the cup of his crucifixion, yet he still deferred to God's will. Luke 22:44 describes him as being in such anguish as he prayed that his sweat was like drops of blood. So Jesus knew what it meant to be stressed out. And fear isn't the absence of faith, but our faith determines what we do with our fear. For me, just knowing that God not only understands our feelings, but he also experienced them through Jesus, man, that brings me great comfort. By faith, I know that God is greater than anything, that he can protect me from COVID-19. Now, that doesn't mean I won't get the coronavirus, but even if I do, I know that God will give me the strength to bear it. You see, faith doesn't take the place of common sense. It's like this. We know God can override the law of gravity if he chooses. But that doesn't mean we should take a leap of faith from the top of a tall building and put him to the test. We know that community with others is a critical part of our faith. But how does that work with social distancing restrictions? Do we ignore them and gather together anyway? Of course not. You see, this is the 21st century, not first century Jerusalem. So, community is not limited to proximity because of technology. Now, technology doesn't replace face-to-face, but it can enhance it, especially in times like this. Here's the bottom line when it comes to our faith and our common sense. Be faithful and be smart. Be safe and care for others who need help. Don't miss what God can do in all of us during this time to draw us closer to him and closer to each other. A crisis doesn't make heroes and villains. It reveals who we really are. Circling back to the words of REM's song, it's the end of the world as we know it, but I feel fine. Well, I do feel fine. But to be clear, my sense of well-being doesn't rest in the lyrics of a song. God's presence and his promises are very real to me. In times like this, they transcend the circumstances and help me see things from an eternal perspective that then comes back down to earth and translates into real life applications. Now, if faith can't do that, then what's the point?